When I first saw the bulldozer idling by the lake, I thought maybe I'd taken a wrong turn. You know that strange half-second when your brain just refuses to believe what your eyes are seeing? Yeah, that was me standing there, mouth half open, while a crew in neon vests tore apart what was supposed to be my father's last apology. I'd driven 800 miles to restore an old cabin, and instead I was watching them grind it into splinters. The woman in charge was exactly the kind of person you picture when you hear the word HOA. Perfect hair sprayed so stiff it could deflect hail lipstick sharp enough to draw blood, and that smug clipboard tilt that says, "I own this place." She strutted up like she was hosting a parade and said, "Oh, you must be Mr. Banner. Congratulations, you just inherited the problem." The way she smiled when she said it, it wasn't even joy. It was power. I could feel it like static in the air. Her name was Martha Ridgway, president of the Crystal Pines Lake Association. I didn't know it yet, but she was about to teach me everything I never wanted to know about how far small people will go when you give them a little authority. I told her that cabin was mine, that I'd just inherited it, that I had the deed in my truck. She didn't care. The structure was unpresentable, she said, tapping her pen like a metronome. The board deemed it a visual hazard under emergency condemnation. That was her phrase. Visual hazard. My father's life's work, his last words in timber and nails, reduced to a zoning label. When I asked for the permit, she smirked. "All our paperwork is in order, Mr. Banner. Perhaps your father should have opened his mail." That one hit deep. My father couldn't open anything anymore. He'd been dead 3 months. I drove straight to the county office, still shaking. The clerk there, young woman, tired eyes, name tag that read Abby, typed in the parcel number. Nothing. No demolition permit, no violation order, no record of anything. Relief hit me like a wave. I was right. It was illegal. Then her supervisor walked over older lady's steel gray bun glasses so tight they looked welded to her face. She took one look at the screen, started typing, and boom. A new permit popped up. Dated today. Signed 30 minutes ago. I remember whispering, "That wasn't there a second ago." The old clerk just smiled. "It's there now." That's when I knew. This wasn't incompetence. It was coordination. By the time I got back to the lake, the cabin was gone. Just the chimney standing like a gravestone. I stood there until sunset, hands trembling, wondering how you're supposed to mourn something you never got the chance to touch. Then the grief turned into something else, something colder. My dad used to say, if you can't fight with muscle, fight with math. I decided to do both. I rented a beat-up mobile home a few miles away and started digging not in the dirt, but in the records. Days turned into weeks. I sat in that county archive until my eyes burned, scrolling through plat maps, deeds, trust filings. Then one night, buried under yellowed paper and dust, I found my father's signature on a document titled The Crystal Pines Land Trust, 1983. At first, it looked like legal mumbo-jumbo, but tucked in the middle was a clause so strange I read it 3 times. It said that if the HOA ever tried to infringe upon the private lot, the trust granted him ownership of the entire land trust, including the lake shoreline, and all community easements would revert to his heir, me. The HOA didn't just demolish my cabin. They triggered the clause. I went to see an old surveyor who'd worked with my father, Mr. Al Finch. The man smelled like sawdust and bourbon, but his mind was sharp. He looked at the papers and started laughing. "Your dad told me he was building a minefield, not a deed," he said. "Guess they finally stepped on it." That night, I called an old Army buddy, Tom Reyes, combat engineer turned carpenter. Told him the whole thing. He didn't even hesitate. "She bulldozed your dad's place. I'll be there by Thursday." While I waited, I fenced the property off. 6-foot chain link sunk in concrete. Let Martha and her board watch from the road. Let them wonder. The day after I finished, I got a call from a blocked number. The voice was soft. "Mr. Banner. My name's Abby. The woman who added that fake permit, she's Martha's sister-in-law. I'm sorry. I couldn't say anything earlier. Turns out the HOA had been skimming emergency repair fees for years, charging residents thousands for sidewalk cracks, algae treatments, fake landscaping fines, then pocketing the money. My father's cabin was the last private property on the lakefront. They needed it gone to sell the access rights for a luxury marina project. So, we flipped the script. Tom and I filed a new permit not for rebuilding, but for a community restoration workshop. Open to the public, free lessons in sustainable building, legally untouchable. Within a week, flyers were everywhere. Curiosity spread like wildfire. Saturday came. Dozens of people showed up with tool belts, crock pots, kids' lawn chairs. We started framing the first wall on the old foundation. The sound of hammers replaced the echo of the bulldozer, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. Right around lunch, Martha showed up. Clipboard in hand, lips pursed like she'd bitten into a lemon. Her enforcer, Hal, trailed behind her sunglasses, reflecting everything but his own shame. She strutted up, trying to act in charge. "This is unauthorized construction, Mr. Banner." I smiled. "Not construction, a workshop. County approved. You're welcome to join." She laughed, that brittle, hollow laugh of people who are losing control. "You think this changes anything?" she said. "We run this lake." That's when I pulled out the papers. "Not anymore." I handed her the trust document, pointing to the clause. "You demolished private property outside your jurisdiction. That activates this." "Congratulations, Martha, you just handed me the lake." She blinked. "You can't." I showed her my phone, the county's time-stamped filing confirming the transfer. "I didn't," I said. "You did." Words spread like wildfire through the crowd, whispers turning into gasps. "Wait, he owns the lake," someone said. The shift was instant. Power flipped in a heartbeat. Martha's face drained to chalk. Hal looked like he'd seen a ghost. 2 days later, I got a formal letter inviting me to an emergency HOA meeting. I showed up. The room was packed, every resident, every whisperer, every skeptic. Martha opened with a speech about misunderstandings and aggressive outsiders. Then she made the mistake of asking for questions. I walked to the front, pulled out a small recorder, and hit play. Her voice filled the room, bullying an elderly widow over flower colors, threatening fines and liens. People gasped. Then I laid down the invoices, the fake fees, the forged receipts, the condo contract. "You weren't protecting property values," I said. "You were selling the lake out from under everyone." The crowd erupted. Al Finch stood up in the back and said, "I move for a vote of no confidence." It was unanimous. And right on cue, the sheriff's deputies walked in, courtesy of Abby. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy, the works. As they led Martha out, hands cuffed, I leaned close and said, "Your clipboard's in the lost and found." She didn't say a word, just kept walking queen without a crown. After that, things changed fast. We dissolved half the pointless HOA rules. I worked with Al and an environmental lawyer to lock the lakefront as a permanent conservation site. No condos, no marinas, no bulldozers, ever again. The neighbors started helping each other instead of policing each other. Tom and I even started a nonprofit, Veterans, helping fix the homes of folks targeted by HOAs. Turned oppression into cooperation. When the new cabin was finally rebuilt, smaller, smarter, off-grid, I bolted a bronze plaque by the door. For the sons whose fathers tried to fix it too late. A few weeks later, my daughter showed up. We hadn't spoken in years. She stepped out of her car, kids tumbling out behind her, and just stared at the place. "Dad," she said quietly, "it's beautiful." I took a breath, watching the lake glitter like nothing bad had ever touched it. And for once, I didn't feel anger or grief, just peace. "Yeah," I said. "Took the whole county to fix it. But we finally did." If you've ever had to stand up to people who think power gives them the right to destroy what isn't theirs, tell me what you'd have done. Would you have fought back or walked away? Drop it in the comments, because sometimes justice starts with one fence post and ends with a whole community rebuilt.